welcome to Roundtable on Telil Community Television. I'm your host, Adam Cook. On this week's show, we're once again going round the Richmond Council table as we review several items from the latest meeting of Council's Committee of the Whole. You're going to get updates on telephone service concerns in eastern Richmond County, solid waste collection concerns in Isle-Madame and in the central region of Richmond County, and we're also going to bring you the latest news about a seniors research project involving county seniors, and you're going to find out near the end of the show about a special drop-in group that gets together every week at the Richmond Villa and how the municipality of Richmond County is helping out this endeavor. But we begin with an update for you on the boundary review that took place just this past winter at the request of the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board. The board has been conducting regular reviews of municipal units all across the province, and Richmond County finally got the results of that review for its municipality earlier this month. We're going to show you footage from the Committee of the Whole meeting that shows what that ruling was, and we think you might be able to tell by the mood of Warden Amanda Mumbercat and municipal councillors just how the ruling went. Here is the warden explaining what happened right now.
So the order has come back in official format with the maps attached, confirming our recommendation on the slightly tweaked boundaries would go forward effective, I guess, the next election cycle. So just congratulations, councillors and staff. Like, this was a huge undertaking, and it's nice to see that the Utility and Review Board has supported our findings and recommendations.
Thank you to all of you around this table, CEO and everybody involved. It was our first kick in the can with a boundary review, and at the end we came out with something I think that worked for all of us and worked for all the residents of Richmond County, and it was good to see that the UARB board approved it with very little opposition and very much confidence, and they appreciate the way that we went through the process. So just want to applaud all of you and thank you all. So is that going to be officially put on the website now, shall we, or that boundary review for the residents to know?
Yeah, I think we may want to put a news release out on it. So maybe, Troy, you and I could kind of work on something just to kind of say, there's been a bow tied on all of this work, and I think we should also thank members of the public for providing such great feedback as well, because certainly there were meetings and there were consultations. And, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we'll put that on our list of things to do. All right, but just keeping in mind, though, that being said, for right now, the boundaries, of our current jurisdictions have not changed. That will come into effect after the next election.
Since it's the fall, you're more likely to see large animals on the road than you would at any other time of year. But according to Municipal Councillor Brent Sampson of District 1 in Isle-Madame, there's been an increase in the number of deer being seen on local roadways. Warden Amanda Mumbercat experienced this for herself just after finishing her MC duties at a Celtic Colours concert in Discouse. So we're going to hear what each of them have to say about it and about the possibility of contacting Nova Scotia's Department of Natural Resources and Renewables to see what can be done about the deer. Here's Councillor Sampson to kick things off.
I think we can all agree when we've looked at the past year and a half or so when it comes to floods and hurricanes and wildfires and everything, when it comes to insurance companies and insurance claims and when it comes to coverage and our insurance going up rate-wise. I've gotten numerous calls recently on the deer population, especially on this island here. People saying they go for leisure drives and count 35 deer in 45-minute drive or whatever, right? And people reporting collisions and numerous people, to the point where their insurance companies are kind of, looking at the situation and asking, what the next steps are, right? And talk to some residents where insurance companies are willing to even, give letters of support to DNR, to see if there's any kind of immediate plan, short-term, long-term plan to see if we can lower the population of deer in our county, right, and try to decrease the number of collisions that are happening and occurring in our county. So
totally agree with you that it is becoming a bit of a safety concern. On our way home from the concert last night, we saw another collision. So are you thinking a letter to DNR? Is that what you're?
Yeah, if we could look at, what you talk to some people and they say that in the Truro area they have a bow season to the point where they have a crossbow season where, they open it up and it increases the amount of does that are being hunted, right? So, anything that, and they're talking about, working with Feed Nova Scotia and food banks and all that stuff when it comes to, sharing, any kind of meat or anything like that, right, when it comes to that stuff, right? So I'd just like to see what DNR is doing across the province to see if we can look at some kind of situation here in our county and try to fix this problem a little bit.
If you're a regular viewer of Roundtable or any Tell-Il programs involving Richmond Municipal Council, you might be aware that there have been some solid waste collection concerns in Zone 3 of the county. That takes in Isle Madame and some communities in the central part of the county. And the reason for all of this trouble is because the municipality has been without a full-time contract for a regular solid waste collection agency for several weeks. The county put out tenders to try to get somebody to fill this role. However, as you're about to hear in this footage from Richmond's Committee of the Whole meeting in October, there are some complications involved in nailing down this contract, including the fact that the tenders came back in at significantly higher costs than the county originally expected. You're going to hear in just a moment from Richmond Warden Amanda Mumberket, as well as the county's Public Works Director Chris Woodrow, and several other councillors as we take a closer look at the problems connected to trying to find someone to take care of solid waste collection in Isle Madame and central Richmond County. So here's that footage from Richmond's Committee of the Whole meeting right now.
So we do have a memo from staff regarding the collection in Zone 3. And I guess a recommendation essentially to follow the policy and to go ahead with awarding this longer-term tender for a curbside collection. As you know, we had an interruption service, I think it was in August. There has been a temporary solution in place, and I believe it was 2 quotes received. And so the analysis from staff is essentially to recommend that the tender be awarded to the lowest price bidder, even though it has come in much, much higher than what we had budgeted. So that's, I guess, essentially why we've got this back in front of council. I don't know, CAO or staff, if you wanted to say anything more on that.
Sure. I'd just add very quickly, based on the director's notes as well that was included in your package, is we reached out to some of the other counties as well, just to give you an idea of how expensive the solid waste is getting. Just to show that, yes, this contract is higher, but it's not out of the realm of what others are paying as well. And we have a number of other districts that'll be coming up, and we do fully expect that these will all keep climbing as the price of gas and everything else goes up as well. And I will defer to my Director of Ops if he has anything else to add.
No, there's nothing more to add. The other contracts don't come up until April 1st of 2025. Again, we do expect pricing to go up for the reasons that the CAO has mentioned. We do feel they're on par with what other areas are seeing who have tendered recently. Just comparing to the other rurals in Cape Breton, when factoring in population, it does look to be comparable. So it is unfortunate, but I do believe the pricing is consistent with what we've seen. And in conversations when we were looking for temporary services, many of the contractors we spoke with made it very clear that if they could offer services, it would be much, much more expensive than we were paying presently. So it's unfortunate, but I think that's the reality for most things these days, and we've seen it in our budget year over year. So.
I think you mentioned that our current contracts would come to a close in 2025. Are we aligning this one up to be the same? Or is it going to be like a longer term? Or
with this one, we tried to make it at least 3 years because of some of the investment required. So unfortunately, they're out of sync. But we could look at the next contracts to bring them back in sync on the subsequent tender, which would be quite a while from now.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
We issued a tender, we had bids, and we basically have to award based on those bids. We can't retender it.
we've seen the bids come in a lot higher than what was anticipated. I'm wondering if some contractors maybe didn't bid because they anticipated it to be a lower amount. You know what I mean? That they would be successful, have to bid to be successful.
I mean, I would suspect that the process is the way it is as outlined by the Director of Public Works, because once the tenders are opened, the cat's kind of out of the bag. That defeats the whole purpose of the tender process, right? So, I mean, and I'll leave that to Chris to correct me if I'm wrong on that. So, I mean, I don't know why we would be able to reopen it.
I think the reality is we don't have a local bidder on this in Richmond County, right? So I think that's a part of the concern that I had anyway, but I know we do have a policy around it. Perhaps we need to, perhaps we need to defer to that policy, or maybe we need to look at potential shifts in policy, but I'm assuming that not being able to open it would be related to that. So go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for this one, with them being open and the price, or it being awarded at this point, we'd have a hard time, or not being awarded, being evaluated based on the criteria with the tender process, we'd have a hard time backing out at this point. Mm-hmm. Going forward, I would ask people to make that effort and be part of our tender processes. It's unfortunate that nobody from our actual county did or had the appropriate equipment as well, because that's another part of the tender process. They had to satisfy the requirements of the equipment as well.
There was a bidder with local connections. I don't know if they reside in the area or not, but it wouldn't factor into the award. It can't.
Anything over 10,000, the local loses it's part of the evaluation, according to policy.
I know it was a difficult period of time when we were scrambling to find someone to do the collection, and a lot of stress on staff, and I'm sure your phones were ringing. I know mine was. But are there any other questions on this? Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think just maybe a little bit of clarification on our policy was definitely something before our next ones come up. Again, I agree. I don't like the fact of putting out retendering it since the cat's out of the bag, but I do believe that if it doesn't fall within our budget, then really we do have that option to we can say no. Again, we're and maybe the price does fall within the parameters of the everywhere else and everything, inflation and everything else, but it doesn't fall within the parameters of what we put aside for a budget. Moving forward, I think that we just have to definitely look at any more tenders that we submit, that we have the opportunity to say no and retender.
Yeah, so that would be a policy discussion. I think what we should be doing too is making sure that we really encourage local contractors to not rule themselves out of the bidding process, right? The tendering process. I think that would be really important. Even if they feel that they can't do it sustainably at a traditional price, that bid on the price that will allow you to be sustainable in the work. And I think maybe we could be doing a better job of that. Just by word of mouth, even just encouraging people to participate. So, but at this point, we do have a recommendation from staff to recommend to council that we authorize them to proceed with the award of the Zone 3 curbside tender to the lowest priced bidder. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Melanie, is there a seconder on it?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. Any further discussion on this item?
So again, Madam Warden, if I can, I know it's hard to bring back to the table, but are we looking at almost $80,000 in the difference?
For the present fiscal, we're looking at a $10,000 to $20,000 overage. But from one contract to the other, you're looking at a twofold increase. We'll say from prior contract to the new contract in the bid.
What was our budgeted amount? Is it in that proposal?
The budget isn't impacted as much because it'll only run January to March this year. But I still share your concerns. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, it looks like our budgeted waste collection costs were $580,000 for 23-24. I don't know if I know. Does it say which part of that is for Zone 3? Yeah, it's up in the prior paragraph. So, I think we're all feeling a little uncomfortable with this because of the dramatic price increase. It's a little bit of sticker shock. It's also really unfortunate that there's not a local bidder. It's really bothering me. But at the end of the day, we do have policy in place to ensure that we get the best bang for the taxpayers' dollars on this, on these types of things, and staff has followed policy. I know they are coming back to us looking for a recommendation to exceed the budget amount, but at the end of the day, our policy still guides us towards selecting that lowest bidder.
There's only one other option, right? Really, right? According to policy, the only other option, other than accepting the lowest bidder, is that we do it in-house. And the briefing note clearly outlines, and I would agree that it just doesn't seem to make sense that that's something that we would do.
And I don't know that that's our only option, though. If we fall outside of the realm of our expected budgeted amount, there's nothing that stops us from putting it back out there for retender.
I share Councillor Melanie's concern as well, and CEO's concern that the cat is already out of the bag, right? So, this tender is pretty much, this information is out there, right? And the cat is out of the bag, so it'd be unfair to the people that already bid on this tender, in my opinion, right? So.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd agree that it's out of the bag necessarily, because if these same companies decide to retender, they may look at it differently, knowing that it's being issued a second time. It wouldn't be the first time you'd see tenders go out, and I'm not sure here, I just mean in general, see a tender go out to, whoever it may be, to not satisfied with the results, so they offer it one more time. I've seen that before.
I've seen that as well, Deputy Warden, when bids will come in consistently over, projects will sometimes go back out but usually with a reduced scope of work to have the project fall within that's been my experience anyway. I'm less familiar with curbside collection contracts, so yeah.
And just to be clear, I wouldn't have expected it to come in anywhere near the numbers it had been previous, because I think we all know it was going to come in quite a bit higher. That's not, part of my concern too is just, that amount of money leaving the county every year. Whereas, if there was any chance at having a local bidder, at least that money would be staying within the county. That money would be invested here.
My concern isn't so much the money leaving the county of Richmond. It's an open bid process, so therefore, I'm sure other counties, there's people from our county that work in other counties, and again, it's not to keep the money in house as much as I would like it, but I feel the fact that the cost of the bid is so much higher than what we budgeted for renders us to take another look.
All of the bids are posted on the provincial procurement website. That's a requirement when you open a tender, and it's a public process. What I would add is if council is thinking of not following the recommendation, that they seek legal advice.
I'm kind of looking through the purchasing and tendering policy, and from what I'm seeing, which I think has already been identified by the Director of Public Works, our policy clearly states that we cannot reissue the tender unless, as the warden has said, we change the scope of the work, and we're not going to change the scope of the work because the work that we need to do is the work that we've already requested tenders on. So we may want to reissue the tender in order to allow local people to put in a bid, but we can't do that.
You're exactly right, Councillor Melanie. It's the situation is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we've got to put yourself in the shoes of the people who did put a bid in. And if I was, in charge of putting one of those bids in, and then, the tender was reopened, there'd be some questions in my mind of fairness, and I would likely be getting some legal advice, right? So I do think our hands are somewhat tied on it. I don't really see another option for us at this point. But and not to say that the successful bidder won't do a great job. I'm sure they will. But at the end of the day, I know we all share some concerns. So So any other comments or questions? We have a motion on the floor and seconded, so any other discussion on this item? Okay. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The ayes have it, but we should register the 2 nay votes on that. Thank you. Okay, thanks, folks. Not an easy conversation, I know.
Richmond County is one of 3 Cape Breton municipalities currently taking part in a seniors research project that's been going on for the past year. It's called Acting Collectively. We've featured it here on Tell Ill, and it's being run by Dalhousie University with the assistance of some local coordinators who are interviewing seniors across the county and in Victoria County and the CBRM as well. We're going to get an update on how the Acting Collectively project is working here in Richmond County. You're going to hear from a few different people involved in the project, including the local project coordinator for Richmond, Celeste Gotel. So let's take you to the Committee of the Whole meeting that took place just last week in Richmond County and hear what the Acting Collectively leaders have to say about their progress.
Between the 3 communities, we have recruited 221 people. Of the 221, 191 have been assessed using the ACT tool. And so every one of them has been asked the 56 questions. They've been asked what are their priorities and what are their concerns and what are their priorities. And Brianna, if you go to the next slide. So at this point, we are at the stage where we have enough data to begin to understand the results and to present to you some options for how you might receive the results about your community. There are essentially 5 options. The one in the middle, the concerns, priorities, and resource gaps, this is, you will receive this. So this one we know that we've spoken to enough community groups, municipalities, the province. Everyone is really very interested in knowing what are the concerns, priorities, and the resource gaps. So I'll show you an example of that. There are then 4 ways which we can produce scores. And the score is a sum or an aggregate of your community. And there are 4 ways to do that. One is, and the 4 are presented here in front of you with the categories or domains that we can create scores. I'll show you one example of the wish scores so that you'll see what a scoring system looks like. But essentially, maybe just, yeah, stay there. But for each of the 4 ways we can produce scores, the scores look different. They're the same questions, but they're grouped in different ways. So the first is the ACT domains, and you'll see there are six domains or categories of activities there. They're, pretty self-explanatory. They're understandable. The wish score has less categories, so it becomes a little higher level, but there's only 4, which is kind of nice in a way. The ACT domains and the wish domains we can aggregate easily from the data that we have. The next way, because they were built into the original tool. The next way is the ICOPE. These are integrated care for older people. These are a WHO categorization, and WHO and ICOPE has developed care pathways. So people who are at risk of falls, they've developed care pathways. So the ICOPE domains lead to recommendations of what needs to happen. The first 8 domains look very medical. The 9th, social care and support, is much more community focused. It's, participation, loneliness, violence. So it's much more community focused than the other 8, which look and are much more medically oriented. The final way is to use age-friendly community domains, which I know you're all familiar with. might be able to do this. The other three are all built into the platform and automatically we can generate them. For the age-friendly community domains, that will be much more work for us. But if that's the thing that would be important to people, then of course that's what we would propose to do. So let me just tell you a little bit more about the action plans so that you get a sense of how we generate these tools. So I said there's a number of questions. It's a conversation. And here you see two examples of the question. Can you use the bath or shower? And can you feed yourself? So this individual has said these are a problem for them. They are concerned about them. When they get to the end of the interview, all of the things that people have identified as a concern are brought back to the individual, and you say, you've identified all of these as a concern. Now, which ones do you really want to prioritize? Which ones of these do you want to know about local resources? So in this case, this individual has prioritized these two areas. So bathing and showering and feeding themselves. As they identify these as their priorities, they get presented with potential resources. They get to select which resources they want to know about, and then they're sent an action plan that has all of the details about the resources that they've selected. So this is how we identify concerns and priorities of older adults. So what does that mean when we start aggregating or summarizing these? Well, of 190 people across the 3 municipalities in Cape Breton, we know that the top concern and priority of older adults is financial allowances or benefits. And 52 of 190 people identified this as a priority for them. Close behind, 48 people prioritized bodily pain and wanted resources for that bodily pain. 37 prioritized sleep concerns, and then 31 and 28 loneliness and feet problems. When you then start looking at how many received or found and select resources, so 52 of 54 found and selected resources around financial allowances, 37, which is pretty good, 37 out of 48 only found resources for their pain. So that begins to identify where there's a gap. There's really a lot of people with pain, not a lot of community resources to help them with that. 37 with sleep problems, only 21 found resources. And when you look at those experiencing foot problems, only 18 out of 28 were able to find resources. So these are the numbers and the kinds of problems and priorities that we will definitely be able to summarize and provide for you. And in case you're curious about Richmond, we have broken this down in the next slide. So the first column is the top priorities in Richmond. Interestingly, CBRM, and when you combine them all pretty much across Cape Breton, they are the same. They are a slightly different order, but the top priorities are the top priorities, regardless of the county that you're in. So pain and feet problems are the biggest priorities of older adults age 65 and over in Richmond County. And this type of information we will absolutely be providing to you. As I said, the other option is to have a scoring mechanism. So in the next slide, you'll see these are the wish scores. So as I said, all of the items are grouped into 4 areas: well-being, independence, social engagement, and health. So this is the average score of older adults. So we are talking to people who are living in the community, not in long-term care homes. So you can see that the average independence score is pretty high. It's above 90. Social engagement is good. When you start looking at health, the scores are dropping down. And when you look at well-being, the score drops even more. So we can produce these scores that give you a kind of a barometer reading on your community in the different areas. So that's an example of how a score might look. And Brianna, if you go to the last, I think our last slide is these, no, oh, sorry, back. So as I said, there are 5 different options. One of them, the concerns and priorities, we will absolutely produce for you. But then there are the 4 scoring options, and we are very, very interested to know which of these would be the most useful to you, which would be the things that would produce scores that you might be able to act on or use to solve problems in your community. And although we don't have a slide, the other thing I will just say that we are learning in this process, right now this is a research project, and we have our coordinators who are going above and beyond to recruit and help assess participants. But we are quickly learning that volunteers and recruiting from a research perspective and a volunteer basis is really not a sustainable option. So we will be recommending that if there is a scale up across the province, there has to be a home for this. There has to be a place where this tool is used consistently with everyone who comes through the door in order to give you as a community good data. Options that are being included or considered: senior safety, some of the new CORA initiatives, primary health care teams, any other services for older adults. So that's a question. That's also a question. So 2 real questions for you. Which of these ways of presenting findings would be most useful? And if you were thinking that these findings are helpful to you as a municipality, what would be your recommendation for a home for this in a scale-up process?
You're looking for council, I guess, at this stage to provide you with which of the, one of the, 5 options for presenting. I guess, which one of the 4 that you're not, that you said you're going to provide the concerns, priorities, and resource gaps. So which one of these other domain kind of structures would we like? Is that it?
Or if you would even want one of those, I guess.
Okay.
If you say, look, all we really want are the concerns and priorities, that's
Right.
fine. But do any of these sort of jump out at you as this would be very helpful for us? Because we want to produce and provide feedback to you that is useful to you.
And I mean, we could have that discussion. We may want to kind of go back and talk with a few folks about it and bring you back an answer. On first blush, I can tell you the age-friendly community domains jump off the page for me, because this is what our telephones ring about, and I would say second to that maybe the ACT domains, but no, it's some great options and really interesting kind of barometer that you're able to provide too based on the data you collect. So maybe we'll take that away and get back to you with an answer. We could ask, just think about it and then ask staff to provide you with an answer on that, if that's okay. And in terms of having a home on a scale up province-wide, obviously our central agencies around Nova Scotia Health or Department of Health and Wellness, or is that what you're thinking, from a government perspective?
I think from a government's perspective, it would be more about the funding it, rather than, because they may not actually have the right mechanism for delivering it. I think government would be more the funder per se than, where would this actually live, because they don't actually see older adults coming through their doors in the same way as, for example, senior safety or some of the new social prescribing initiatives.
Could I just jump in here for a minute, Tanya? I guess to kind of build on a little bit about what Amanda's saying is that it's true that Nova Scotia Department of Health may end up being the funder or whatever, but I guess my concern about senior safety positions is it's not consistent across the province. There are municipalities that have no senior safety. There has not been one here in Antigonish for 3 years now. And I'm just wondering about, you know, and then if you went with continuing care or VON, you're only getting people who are accessing those services. You're not getting the entire senior population. So, I mean, therein lies a bit of the challenge in terms of the scale up part. Like, where is the home where all seniors have access to it? I'm not convinced that there's any one place in the province that that's the case. I think every community is different.
Yeah, thank you, Celeste. And yeah, so councillors, do you have any questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, for me, you had mentioned there was 221 recruited out of the 480 that you were looking for. Would you guys have a breakdown of those 221 where, like, from Richmond, Victoria, CBRM? Would you have a breakdown of those 221?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So the stats were included in that presentation, which was from the last week of September. Richmond represented 77 of the completed assessments, and then about 15 more who were registered. So right around 99.
Rah for Richmond. You're doing a great job, Celeste. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know there's still work to do on recruitment for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Any
have
other questions?
84 that have been completed to date out of the 221 for Richmond. But if you think about, comparatively speaking, with our population, our numbers we're doing quite well, but we still have things planned, including October 27th. We're hoping to do some recruitment that day and a couple of other events that are happening.
Yes,
Great,
we'll
thank
actually be in Cape Breton for that event.
This is a really great update. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. We'll be in touch with, I guess, some direction on how we want to proceed with kind of reporting back. And I think in terms of where does it live on the scale up, that's not something we can answer this evening either. You know, or if it gets scaled up for that matter, right? So it's I think that's a bigger question we'll all have to put our heads together on.
Well, we are asking the province. So we've been in conversation with them about that now. So we're starting that process before we get to the end of the project.
It's no secret that several communities in Richmond County have experienced gaps in their cell and internet service for several years. However, the recent natural disasters in Nova Scotia, including Hurricane Fiona just over a year ago, and flooding and wildfires on mainland Nova Scotia this previous spring and summer, have exposed the cracks in the entire telecommunication system in Richmond County and across Nova Scotia. This includes landline concerns for Bell customers in eastern Richmond County. Deputy Warden and District 5 Councillor Brent Sampson had some issues that he brought forward in this regard. You're going to hear them from this footage from the latest Committee of the Whole meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. Here's Deputy Warden Sampson right now.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Bell Canada invitation to appear before Council. And again, Deputy Warden, you wanted to bring this forward to Council's attention. Over to you.
Yeah, so what I put here, having heard from residents as well as we've all noticed the degradation of service with regards to cell coverage, I think, over the last year or two. And I know it's not only here, it seems to be throughout the province. But I thought it may be helpful to ask if we could have representatives from Bell appear before Council. Now, I'm trying to remember, they did somewhere else lately, and I can't remember if it was Guysborough or Antigonish. I don't know that came to any conclusions. However, you know, I have some major concerns with just the changes in service over time, and nobody seems to be able to get a square answer as to why. Another thing, in District 5, it's a semi-regular occurrence to have large landline outages in the Framboise area. There was one again yesterday. It was fixed by last night, but it seems to happen at least once every 2 to 3 months, and sometimes 4 or 5 days, you know, or more. It's happened so many times now that it seems to me, you know, there must be a serious issue there. But again, it gets solved temporarily. And then I hear from residents, you know, a month or two down the road that it's happened again, but nobody seems to be able to give us a clear answer as to why or if something can be done about this. So I just thought it would be in our best interest to have, if it's possible, to have representatives from Bell appear before council, that we could ask them some questions and see if we could find any information that we don't seem to be able to give the public, because I know we probably all get asked these things from the public, and it's hard to know. You get different stories from different people. One person heard it was this, somebody else heard it was that, and I'd rather go right to the source.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Yeah, there certainly is lots of anecdotal speculation as to why that's going on, and maybe some of it's real and some of it isn't. I'm not sure, but it would be great to hear from the source for sure. And specifically, you're talking about Bell service, and not like, because I know Seaside provides some phone service, landline phone service, and.
Yeah, so the outage issues in Framboise are through Bell. Yeah.
So the motion's been made to request a representative from Bell Canada to attend a council meeting and have a discussion on cell and landline service. I do believe we have a contact from a while back, and maybe we can kind of reactivate that.
I've had many calls from my district in the Butcherville area, and I've days, if not weeks, without landline use or internet service or phone service, right? So I look forward to having some representation from Bell here to discuss this situation for sure.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried.
This past week's edition of Richmond Municipal Council in Arishat also saw some discussion about a federal-provincial program that's designed to assist people with wastewater treatment issues. You're going to hear from Warden Amanda Mumberket talking about the initiative in just a moment, and you're also going to hear from District 1 Councillor Sean Sampson, who says that the program has helped many people deal with issues with their own septic systems in the past, and how he'd like to see the project going forward once again. But we begin with Warden Mumberket and her thoughts.
So just having a quick little conversation with Chris just before the meeting started this evening and earlier in our bylaw and policy meeting. Just wanted to kind of introduce the idea of looking into maybe writing a letter to other levels of government, encouraging them to continue to fund wastewater management district funds if council was in support of that. My understanding is that it was a federal provincial program, and that a certain percentage would be paid by, through that program, a certain percentage would be paid by the homeowner, and then the municipality would generally pick up the remainder of the bill, which Chris indicated was about $1,000, depending on the type of work that that happened. But the uptake was really strong, and I think resulted in a lot of, let's just say, improvements, much needed improvements to septic systems in our county, which is obviously going to improve our environment. So, would council be in favor of maybe, I don't know, Troy and I starting to look into the feasibility, or not really the feasibility, but the idea of starting to advocate if it makes sense for us to do so around this program?
Yeah, for sure, Madam Warden. I'm still getting requests every day of people that want to apply for this program, and yeah, I think it was a great program and it helped out a lot of people when it comes to their septic systems. So I'd be all in favor for that for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sean. So maybe we'll just take that away as a consensus, and maybe we can chat about it with Chris. I don't want to, start advocating for something that's not sustainable for our county, but I'd like to at least start to kind of think about it. So, okay.
There has been a lot of discussion over the past couple of months at the municipal and provincial level about all-terrain vehicles and their use in different communities across the province. And that applies to the Strait area as well. For example, last month in Port Hawkesbury, a town councillor, Jason O'Coin, put a proposal forward to develop a new bylaw that would allow ATV users greater access to town streets and trails. Ultimately, the bylaw proposal didn't go anywhere because it didn't have support from other town councillors or from other members of the town in terms of allowing this access to ATV users. The issue surfaced at Richmond Municipal Council's latest Committee of the Whole meeting as the municipality tries to figure out how it should be working with new provincial legislation that provides a new set of rules and guidelines for ATV users and other off-road vehicle enthusiasts across the province. How does it apply to Richmond County? Let's look at this footage from the Committee of the Whole meeting to get a better sense of what's happening.
So I'll move us on to the new rules for off-highway vehicles in effect, and I know the Deputy Warden wanted this added to the agenda, which I was very happy to see, because I think there's some change in the wind there. So Deputy Warden, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so I've been contacted several times, including today, even with the email with lists and so on and that. But I think, so as the provincial pilot program, what I wrote, has now become permanent to allow ATV use in specific locations on public highways within the province. It seems to claim it's now up to municipalities to decide if they want to allow for such changes, but I don't know if I'm 100% accurate on that. So all I was requesting tonight was just that staff could look into this and see where we go from here, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it, and I think people were probably hoping it would be okay. The municipalities are going to allow this, right away. But I said without the details on this, we're not sure where to go. So I want to make sure we do this process properly.
Yeah, I want to look at the Police and Advisory Committee as well for some input on this, because I would hope that the province would be coordinating through the RCMP departments throughout the province, which look after the policing in a large portion of the rural municipalities, to make sure that we can get some guidance from them as well on how, because in a lot of places they act as the default traffic authority for the municipality, so it would be very important to make sure they're engaged in this process.
We have a police advisory meeting this month, so maybe that would be, at least that would move that along sooner than later.
Yeah, I think we'll add that to our action list if councillors are in agreement, that to ask staff to look into what the impact might be here and what our next steps might possibly be. I think about our trail strategy, Shannon, and I think, is there a way that this new development could help us connect our trails in a more robust way? There are some bridges that are tough to get across in this county, so.
Well, that was exactly one of the things highlighted in the trail strategy, was where we had areas within the county, like the bridge in Lennox Passage, the bridge in St. Peter's, where it doesn't allow for ATVs to cross. So, as far as increasing from a tourism standpoint for people to do multi-day trips, this is something that has to be addressed.
And I would just suggest that we reach out to members of the ATV Association of Nova Scotia, because they've been working on this file, obviously a long time. They were part of the selection of the pilot, or the submission of the roads for the pilot project, and I think that they have a process as well, because there are some roads that have to be approved, I think, still through the province. So I know, like, the local ATV club one of them in my district has provided some list of roads already that they're looking for. I suspect both of them have, but one for sure, so yeah.
So maybe the ask then is to ask staff to begin looking at next steps for the municipality, including reaching out to the Police Advisory Board and local ATV groups to develop, I guess, a plan of action.
By contrast, District 3 Councillor Melanie Sampson suggested that the immediate course of action Council should consider taking would be to reach out to the provincial lobby group for off-road vehicle enthusiasts.
To reach out to the ATV Association of Nova Scotia, so not the local clubs, but the actual, you go right to the top. Yeah.
And it would be for staff as well. So we wouldn't expect folks to, be trying to, we want to make it consistent through staff. Okay, perfect. So any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. And we're going to wrap up this week's edition of Roundtable on a different note. There was a presentation at Richmond's Committee of the Whole meeting last week from a coordinator of a long-time adult drop-in center that meets every week at the Richmond Villa in St. Peter's. She's Marie Burkey of Lordways. She described exactly what happens at these gatherings that have been going on for several years now. Warden Amanda Mumberket, who is also the councillor for District 4 that includes the Richmond Villa, had a special check presentation for Burkey and for her other coordinators of the Adult Drop-In Centre at the Richmond Villa. So let's hear what Marie Burkey has to say about this weekly gathering.
I found out tonight that on October 12th, which is next Thursday, the drop-in center has been operating for 17 years. And the only time we weren't there was during the COVID period. And We, as of the weekend, we now have 8 volunteers. But 17 years ago, we started off with about maybe 7, 8 participants with 2 volunteers. The last Thursday of June, before we ended up before the summer break, we were 42 people with 7 volunteers. So we're growing. And a point I wanted to make too is that it's not just for mental health people. It's anybody that's lonely or wants to have fun, anybody can come. So we meet every Thursday from 1 to 4, every week at the St. Peter's and Areas Lions Hall, 39 Lions Avenue in St. Peter's. We have a very, very good crowd of people. It seems everybody's just friendly, they're happy, they laugh, we have music. It's relaxing. It's like we don't care what they look like or what they talk about, or we're all there just to listen to them and interact every which way we can to help them get along. And it's just like, as a volunteer, like we go home. I know most volunteers feel this, that we have been such a big help for all these people, because it's just a reaction that we get from them. Like, they laugh, they joke, we have music once in a while, and people go up to the microphone and sing, and they dance, and they do all this stuff. So, and every week we have lunch. Without food, I don't think they would come. So to feed 42 people is a lot of sandwiches. We usually have 3 or 4 different kinds of sandwiches, and of course sweets, tea and coffee, all they want to eat, and they can eat, let me tell you. And that part is just great, right? You're around the table, and you got friends, and they talk, and they carry on, and all this stuff. And about 2:30, let's say, we play bingo. And the bingo prizes come from all the people everywhere, for people that, if you declutter a cupboard and you see a teapot that you will never use, well, they call me, I pick it up. I wrap it, and then they have to unwrap. Okay, so let's say it's a guy or a girl or anybody. They have to unwrap the prize before we go to the next game. And then they're there. Well, what did you get? Oh my gosh, is that ever nice? Can I have it? Stuff like that. So it's all different stuff that people carry on and everything. So okay, let me read my notes. I'm talking too much here. Yeah, see, it says here, social interaction improves your ability to recover from stress, anxiety, and depression. And it certainly works. We see it every week. People are coming from all over the county. We get the Friends of Madame, the 2 small option homes of Bluesdale, somebody from Lennox Passage, River Bourgeois, St. Peter's, Lordways, of course. There's somebody that comes from Loch Lomond. So it's pretty well all of Richmond County. And they all come. They come every week. There's a guy, actually I'm going to give him a prize on Thursday. He has never missed a week. Never, since it first started. Yeah, he's the only one. So then I can give him a gift card or something just to, we got to make sure, of course, that we got money to feed them. So I sure thank Richmond County Council for all the donations you've given us over the years, and especially this next one. Oh, it's going to be great. It saves a lot of stress. There was a few facts that was written down. I won't read them all because everybody knows. Mental illness indirectly affects all Canadians at some time in their lives. Mental illness affects peoples of all ages, educational backgrounds, income levels, and cultures. Stigma attached to mental health issues presents a serious barrier to diagnosis and treatment. And once depression is recognized, help can make a difference for 80% of people affected. allowing them to get back to regular activities. And this is what we try to do when they come. Like, we all treat them the same. It doesn't matter what they have. Like, some of them don't even have mental issues. They just like to come. But it's okay. We take them all in. The more the merrier. And when we have as far as lunches and stuff, where we try to get them to help make the lunch. And sometimes we have people coming in, like dietitians and stuff, and then they will teach them how to make like a simple meal, or because most of them just live alone. And then before we go to bingo, well, a lot of them play like cribbage, some play chess. We have board games, we have jigsaw puzzles, so everybody kind of keeps busy that way. And then we play bingo. So, and another one that comes in, we have floor curling. Now, that is really interesting because it's very, very competitive. Oh, my good gosh, like, it's unbelievable, yeah. And once in a while, we will get a professional. Like, for instance, in May, we're going to get a psychologist to come in to do a talk. And, you know, they listen very well. They're very, very interested. Somebody came in a while back, and all to do with the scams and the frauds and all this stuff. Now, that really opened a lot of their eyes because it's so sad, right? And and we do a little bit of fundraising. Well, we do quite a bit of it. Ticket sales. Our house at a yard sale, getting rid of junk, and we did quite well on it, and most of the funds went to the drop-in because making food is expensive now, so everything that helps is a help. Every month, we celebrate the birthdays of whoever's birthday is in that month. They get their name put on a cake. And, of course, we sing happy birthday and all this stuff. And occasionally, we have live music. One of them is Tyrone David. And he can sure get the crowd going. It's unbelievable. Like, they dance and they laugh, and he's really good at it. And we used to do trips. Like, for instance, we went to the Two River Wildlife Park in Marion Bridge and all those places, right? But now everything is so expensive. We can't even take them for an ice cream. Like, it's just all of this, you know. So, but they're happy to be at the hall. And we just keep them busy, and at 4 o'clock, everybody takes off, and we all go home. And that's about it for that. I don't think I missed anything. I had got some quotes from people that come regularly, just to see what they felt about the drop-in center, because we work hard at it, right? Like, 8 volunteers for 42 people is not too many. And it's a lot to do. But anyway, most of them were saying, oh, it was the good food, the nice lunch, the music, singing, lots of fun, good laughs. Most people love to play bingo. The good company, the inclusion of whoever comes in. They don't feel like they have to fit in. They fit in. The idea of being among friends. And it's great to see all the smiles on everybody's faces. So, you know, we can't ask for much more than that. And, of course, the Adult Drop-In Center is supported by the Dr. Kingston Memorial Community Health Center. And their staff, especially Sherry Sampson, is very, very helpful. And anything I need to be printed or whatever, even this year, she did it. I had no clue what to do with this. So thanks, Sherry. And also the St. Peter's and area Lions Hall. The good thing about them is that we get the hall free of charge. They don't charge us anything. We have the full kitchen, and we just walk in. We don't have to worry about keys or anything. We leave at 4, and we just leave. Yeah, so that is very, very, and once in a while they will support us money-wise too, from their bingos and stuff. Now, Sherry found a picture of the group, and I figure maybe this is about, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. It's a long time ago, and it was a Christmas one, and it's just like we always try to give them like little gifts from Santa Claus. Santa Claus comes. Last year we had a hard time finding a Santa Claus, let me tell you, but we found one. And like just little things, right? But they're so pleased to have just a little gift from Sam. They sit on his knees and they carry on, and here's a little gift, like everybody's name is mentioned, and we go on, like, you know. So all in all, it's just great to be involved with them. And I want to personally thank the volunteers. I think they're going to hear all this anyway, because they come every week, and we just have a good time, and we provide them with good food, and that's how she goes.
What strikes me about it is the age range. You've got a wide age range of folks who are coming in.
The oldest one would be 82, I think, and the youngest one is 22. So we have a range, yeah. At one time, it wasn't that extended, but now that they come from everywhere, all over the county, yeah.
And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Roundtable here on Tellil Community Television. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour, or just some suggestions for future editions of Roundtable, feel free to contact me directly or to contact Tellil Community Television in Arishat. And be sure to follow Tellil on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for this week's edition of Roundtable. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.